Hello and welcome to this Scriptcase NetMake video. My name is Jamie and I am your host. Now before I start today's video, I'd like to point out that I am running the latest version of Scriptcase, which is 9.12.008. So there have been quite a few updates. And in today's topic, we are talking about the dynamic menu system, because the dynamic menu system has had a complete overhaul, as some of you may know. And if you are new to Scriptcase, then this is a very nice feature and definitely a video that you want to be watching. So today we will be learning how to implement a dynamic menu using the new responsive menu feature that is available in Scriptcase. And with this, we can dynamically create our menus. But we will get started on how we can create a menu with just code. So this will be the code menu. We will be exploring on how to use the Scriptcase macros and how to build menus with the macros themselves and with code. And you will then be dynamically be able to loop through custom logic. So then we will be creating a second menu, which will then allow you to filter your data with the menu. So we will be creating 3 different menus here, and that was number 2. The third one will be generating the menu from your database tables, and then you can link it to the applications within your application modules. Okay, so let's dive into Scriptcase, where I have already created a whole new project. So I have already pre-prepared this so that you don't have to worry about that. So I will show you very quickly the database, and the database is using a MySQL table because it's a little faster, and I am in fact using Docker for that instead of the typical WAMP setup that I am using. And I must say, I am finding that so much faster. Now I have here the database connection connected to the dynamic menu. So if I come here to databases and database builder, we can then access that database. And then here we can see that we have here a dynamic menu database. So here I have some very basic tables where I have, first of all, the dynamic menus table, a view for that, some webinar groups, applications, as well as then the group apps. So we will be developing applications around that today. Now with that, we will be wanting to connect that also to a secondary database, and that would be the samples project. Now typically it may be a good idea to go ahead and create that samples project and then add this database to it. But as the samples database is full of applications already, I figured we will start with a nice clean project and then just open up here the new connection and attach then the samples database, which I have already generated previously and then also added here into my project. And then here we have then the samples table or database I have pre-created, and then I can just test the connection and save that. So then now I will have 2 database connections available within this project. So that is pretty much how we have started. We have not generated any applications yet. And as you guessed it, we will be, of course, generating at first the responsive menu. And for that, we will need some grid applications maybe, or maybe a form, or whatever it is we want to develop around this system. So I will just go ahead and create from our newly added table, or database should I say, a grid application. So here I will then choose the new connection that I have just added. And there I will then have the samples tables that we all know and love from the samples project available within Scriptcase. So if you haven't actually generated that, be sure to go ahead by starting a new project before this and actually generating the samples project first. So that is a requirement. I should have maybe mentioned that at the beginning of the project, but you know me, I'm just diving head first in there. Okay, so we have then here our tables, and let's go ahead and maybe choose here the regions table. We should have a regions table here. To get my glasses on, I do. Okay, so there we have a region table. So let's choose that. And let's create that grid first of all. And what I will then also do is create another grid application. And this one, that will also be on connection 1. And this one, let's have a look here at the customers table. And now here for the customers table, we have here the region ID already, so we can use this table quite nicely. So let's go ahead and create then also the customers grid. Now you will see that as we create this new menu system, we will add these two applications and be able to dynamically select or dynamically create our menu, all of that, and be able to construct a much cleaner and more functional application, because there have been some further updates to the menu system, which I will talk about as we construct our menu. Okay, so the new menu system, let's go have a quick look at this first of all before we start, so that we can see basically what it looks like without anything. So this is then the plain menu. We have the user section here, which we can actually hide, as well as the theme selection and the search that then uses our applications. Okay, so with that, we can either add new menu items in here manually by clicking there, the plus symbol, and just like that, we have added some new menu items. But we want to actually develop this menu with code. So we're going to go through that in a few moments. So first of all, the user menu itself. If I disable that, that will then remove here the user menu from there. So I don't really want that right now. And I do not want here the search, languages, themes, and shortcuts or anything else. I don't want them there to distract. Okay, so there's no need for those anyway. I will enable the loader because I do really like the loader. And let's leave it as horizontal. Okay, so I will add the logo in here for Scriptcase, because there we have our full-size logo, and then also a compact logo, which we can then add in here. Now for the theme, we have quite a few beautiful themes here for the menu, such as the dark hyperspace that has a nice flavor there, the dark pink, the dark rhino, the light gray. You know, these are all quite nice menus that you can then, or themes should I say, that you can then apply to your menu system. So I will go today with the coffee, because I have not drank enough coffee today. And then with that, we will have a nice brownish looking menu. So if I go ahead and save that, we have made some adjustments there to the toolbar items, as well as then the layout. We enabled the loader, added the logos. So if I go ahead and run that now, we have then here our Scriptcase logo, and everything else has been removed from this menu system. Okay, so now within our menu, we can access here our events, and then here we have the on application init. Now we have various macros available within Scriptcase. So if I open up another page here, and let me then go to scriptcase.net. And then from here, we have the e-learning. So there has been some adjustments here to the positioning of everything. So if you watch previous videos, do note that you no longer have a drop menu there, and you need to actually come here to the e-learning. And then you have here all of the options available to access the documentation, the knowledge base, and so forth. So all of that is there. And of course, there is the Scriptcase by Jamie knowledge base as well. So if you want to check that out, do make sure you check out the Scriptcase by Jamie YouTube channel. Okay, so here within the documentation, if I check that out, we have then the option to read that online, viewing then the latest version of the Scriptcase documentation. And then if I come here to the macros, and if I Control F, now Control F please, and then here we can then search for the reset, because we will want to reset our menu first. And there we have, there we will find it in a few moments. Reset global, and it should be down here by the menu. There we go. SC app menu reset. So we want to start with this macro here. So let me open that in another tab. And that we have then here. So this macro resets the array used in the dynamic creation of a menu application. So it's a nice idea to use this so that if you do by chance have menu items in here all configured, then using this macro, well, then we are going to reset that. So let me change that then to menu. So we need to indicate then the name of the menu that we are resetting, and that is then the name that we see here within the toolbar, or tabs, should I say. Okay, so our next macro, let me close that tab. Our next macro is then here the create. So now we want to then create a new menu. So it may be a little odd, but that is exactly what we want to do, because we are resetting the dynamic menu and then we want to create a new dynamic menu. So that is very important. Okay, so just like that, we have already, and I just press Control S there and save. It saves then as well, or press the save, whichever you prefer. Control S works usually as well. And then just like that, we can then save the page, and we have then started to create a menu here. So if I go ahead and run that now, it still is a blank menu. We have not added any items in here yet. So let me close then the create. We don't need that again, but now we do want here the app menu add item. And with this macro, we can then go ahead and add items into this dynamic menu. So there have been a few adjustments to this, because we can now add parameters in here beautifully, as well as full links and so forth. And the icons, well, now they are icons from the Font Awesome library. So we will have a look at those in a few moments. Now, if you want to learn more about macros, I have Macro Friday every week over on Scriptcase by Jamie, and there I show you how to use each of these macros also. Okay, so here we have then the SC app menu add item. Now we need to define here, first of all, the menu name, which is, as we have here, menu, so we can just paste that in there. Now we need to define then also an item ID. So let me save that. And then here within the menu items, when we generally add an item, it will add an item ID for that item. So that is then also needed here within the macro. So we define our item ID, and that way we can always target it. And then we have then the parent ID. So we can then assign our menu items to parents. So here, for instance, we could say this is item _1. And let me close that off so we don't forget to do that. Copy that and then paste that again. And then here, for instance, we could say item number 2, and then this one here would go to item number 1, like so. And now here we don't need anything, so we have no parent for this one. We can leave that as it is, because we're giving this a new ID, but then also defining a new parent here. Okay, so with that then here, let's go ahead and add a label, and I will say menu in code, and that will then apply a menu name there for us. We have then an application that we want to assign that to, but well, let's go ahead and add that in here. Let's go grid that we created there, the grid customers. So let's add here grid customers. Now we can add some parameters in here. We don't need any parameters for this one, so we'll leave that as it is. For an icon, we have the Font Awesome library. So let's open then the Font Awesome library. And then from here, we have all of the free icons that we can then use. We have the classic duotone and sharp, as well as sharp duotone and branded icons available here. So if you do have the Pro, then I think you can also use those, and by simply replacing the icon pack within Scriptcase, which is very nice. Now, otherwise, for you, me, and everyone else that doesn't have the Pro, then you will have the classic icons, which are generally free. So here, let's search for an image icon, and we want a free one because it's what it is. And then here we have the icons available that we can use. So here, for instance, we can choose any of these that we want to use. And let's go with an image. And that is then FA solid FA image. Now, if I come back then here to my Scriptcase application, that is going to copy the entire link for me. So I can just copy here the icon and then place that in there. And that will then use the icon for me. And while I'm at it, let's go ahead and grab, say here, the eye, and then we can use that here for our second menu item that we have here. And there we will also require no parameters. Here we have no application to choose. And then for the label, we can add in here available grids. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that as it is. Of course, I have not completed here our first option there, but the icon or the menu item is already being displayed, menu encode with our font awesome icons. So returning back here to our menu, let's finish this off. So we've added here our icon in here. We can add a hint here as well. So let's go ahead and say this is a dynamic menu created in code. Okay, it's not entirely dynamic yet, but it will be soon enough, right? Not entirely dynamic. There we go. And with that, we can then also set here the target, which for this one here, we do not need. But for this one here, we would maybe want to indicate self, because there we can then say self or blank or maybe even parent, and define exactly where you want that window to be opened. Okay, so if I run that again now, we have then here our menu items, and we have then also the help information displayed over that. Now, do note that because I have actually gone ahead and added this secondary menu item already, then is not displaying the help above that because it's not really needed no more. So really, we should have just started with one menu item. But of course, I've added a parent in there, and you've seen now how you can add the parent menu icon as well as then the child menu icon. And if you wanted the child, of course, I could just say copy one of these here, and then let's add another one, and let's call that item number 3. And then let's say menu in, let's change that, alternative menu. And just like that, let's keep that as grid customers. We will leave there the help now, because you now see the help there, but not over the menu code. So that is very important to highlight, that then the link for our parent menu item is then also removed. Okay, so just like that, we have added a few menu items in here, and of course we can add a few more in here, just like so, just replicating them over. And of course, I can also give them a completely different ID if I wanted to, just to point out. And let's go with 30 there, and let's say 90 here. Okay, so just like that, we have completely different menu options, and we can then add different icons in there and change then also the path from an application to maybe a URL that I have there. And then I can change then here the hint also, just like that. Of course, my fat fingers, and there we have then added a hint there. And we can do the same also for all of these other links. So let's add here the latest update to Scriptcase in here also, which is then the new features, and that is then also displayed there. And here you will find info on the latest SC features. And just like that, we have added some extra menu options in here. So let's change then also this one. Let's change here to region. And I think we may actually want to have an extra grid application. So let's add one extra grid application. It's good to have an extra. So let's add in here the comparison and generate that one. Come back here to our menu, and then we can add that in there also. Of course, that has to generate there first and then open. Okay, so with that then here, we can add here our comparison. comparisons, and comparisons. Okay, so we can add these extra menu items, and then now I'm just going to go ahead and run, and you have then all of these new menu options here, and we may want to change exactly how they open. So right now these open in tabs, and you may not want them in tabs. So here, let's go in blank, and we can do that then also with the scriptcase.net page here as well, which wouldn't open there within the tabs because it doesn't allow the import like that. And then here we could even open up a menu item in parent, and that will then replace then, for instance, the menu beware. So if I come here to menu code, we have our menu grids. I'll open Scriptcase by Jamie, that opens there. The new features, that then opens there. And then the alternative menu, and then here the other alternative menu, which then opens in as the parent and takes over the menu now in this case. So you would want to use parent in some situations, maybe not in this one. So, okay, so I will go ahead and save that because we want to get on and create two more menus. So, but before I jump, I will change here the link to here our application, because we have here grid customers and we want comparisons. It was comparison, and there we can then apply that then to these applications here, because we are going to do something else with customer. Okay, so we have then our first menu created, and that is menu number 1. So let me go ahead and rename this to menu underscore code number 1. And that way, you know which menu it is. And what I'll do then is also copy this menu, and we will then go menu, and we will call this one DB. And in fact, let's just go with the filtered first. And we want a filtered menu, and that is going to be number 2. Okay, so then we will create now our filtered menu. Now we've seen everything from the menu otherwise already, and in this menu it is pretty similar. We have then the same options because we just copied it and saved ourselves a bit of time. Now we have then also all of our menu items here, which are no different, but I will make a few changes here. So let me bring this lot down here. And then we have here our app menu add item. And then with this, we will have our first menu item. And let's just call that one here menu. And of course, note the menu in the other application will now not work because we just changed the name of it. So let me just very quickly adjust that. I would hate for you to come in here and then not be able to use that menu. So let's just change that here very quickly in each of these menu items. And that way, that menu, running it now, very quickly for the last time, we see works beautifully. Okay, so then we have here our menu filtered. And that is number 2. And then we want to apply the same here. So I will paste that everywhere for now so that, you know, we just don't forget it. Okay, so we have then here our first menu item. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that here with my magic one up here. So I'll place this as item number 1. Okay, so now that we have adjusted our menu names here and make sure we've got no typos there. And with that, we have then here our functioning menu again. So let's just very quickly check that out. And we see none of them are generating because I spelled filtered wrong. And I should maybe wear my glasses when I'm doing this. And there we have filtered. And there we go. Run that again. And that is, of course, why we test our applications. And there we go. So just like that, we have then here, first of all, our menu encode, first of all. Now I'm going to change this, and I'm going to call this customer regions. And that is then not going to call any application. And we need nothing there. We need a solid image, but we don't. We want to use here the FastFA users, and that will then display some users here as an icon. And for our help here, we want to display here the customers by region in here, and that will then display that. We don't actually need anything in here, and this is an item number 1, filtered 2, and we have no parents. Okay, so let's save that one. That is our first menu item. So that will essentially become a parent. So we are going to turn that into a parent now. What we want to do then is use the SC lookup field, and there we want to select the region ID, the region description from our region, and then we can increase that by 1 all the time, but starting with 2. So let's do that, and then we can then loop over what we have within our database. So we have then a for each that we can create here, and then with that we can then go ahead and create our loop, right? Okay, so we have a data set which we have just created from our SC lookup field, because that's what this creates here, a data set, and we want to set that as an item. So for each data set that is not available will become an item. Okay, so with that we then come into our for each, and then we want to grab the region ID. So our ID will equal then our item, and within that we have then the region ID which we are grabbing here, and that will then become our region ID. Okay, so we will also maybe want to use here the region description as our description or help field. That would be nice, right? So let's grab then also our description from there. So let's say our region, and that then equals our item again. And within that, we have then our region description, which we are also grabbing here. Okay, so we can close that one up, and then within that, we can then generate here our app menu. So I'll just copy here the SC app menu add item that we had previously created. Let me give that a bit of space and remove here the sides a little bit so you can see that a little better. Okay, so then we have here our app menu add item, and we want to make some adjustments in here. So we are already creating our item for the filtered menu, which we have defined in our name. We have then our item, which then essentially becomes our ID, right? Or our item, because we have set the item right up here. Now, below that, we have then item 1. So that will then become our parent ID, which is this one up here. Now, for our name, well, in here, we may want to add the description in there so that we know what it is. And then after that, we want to open also our grid customers, which I will then also go ahead and open here, because within that, we want to adjust here our SQL. And if I zoom in there a little bit, we have here the region ID. So we can grab that and say from customers where our region ID equals then say, well, S underscore, well, let's call it customer C underscore region. Okay, so there we go. That is then our global variable that we have applied here within our grid application. And if I then run the grid, it will now ask me for the C region. So I need to add a region ID in there. And then we have all of the users within that region. Okay, so if I come back then to our menu filtered, we have then here the region that we have applied, which is then our description, our grid customers, and then after that, we have then the option to add a parameter. So here we could say C underscore region, and that then equals our ID. If My fat fingers didn't add a typo there. Okay, and then for our icon, well, we can remove the icon entirely, as well as then the help description, or add the help description. So let me run that and just see how that goes. In fact, we're actually missing something there, and we still need to add the connection. So we want to actually loop over that, because we're not looping over anything yet, are we? So I and our plus plus, and there we go. Now we are actually looping, and as you see here, the error message indicates we need to add a database connection, because we are now using here the SC lookup field and getting data from our database. So for that, I'll come here to SQL and then choose here the con MySQL1. Okay, save that and run. Now we have our menu as well as our regions and available grids there as well. So we have all of our regions in there, and we have also one of our other menu items indicating as a parent one. Okay, so we have that here still, and as we see, those are still there, and we just need to remove those if we wanted to, and then leave the final ones there. Save that. Let's go ahead and run that again, and there we now have our region selected menu with the latest links. So just like that, you create the filtered menu, should I say, dynamically within Scriptcase. Okay, so we want to dive on to menu number 3, because yes, we have another menu to create, 3 whole menus. And this one, well, again, I'm going to go ahead and copy one of these here. So if I copy here our filtered, and I'll call that one db_3, and okay, we will then also again be able to identify that. Now, in that, we can then open the db3, which we've just created. And again, everything is the same. So we just need to access here our onApplicationInit event. Now here again, we need to change here the name. So menu_db_3 is the new menu name. So let me apply that here everywhere, just so we don't forget it. Okay, so that is done. Now we want to actually make a few adjustments here. So I'm going to leave those links there, and we do want to use a lookup again, but we want to make some kind of changes here, because we have also here within our database builder. So if I come here to con MySQL1, so we have in here a dynamic menu table all prepared for you, and if I access that, we can check that out very quickly, properly, before we continue with creating it actually. So we have here first of all the ID, and then also the parent. We have then also the icon, the label, the description, the link, as well as the target. Now, I'm sure all of these make sense to you now that we have just gone through the creation of those 2 menus, because we have just assigned each of these to the SC app menu add item macro that is available within Scriptcase. And now we can further adjust that macro and grab our menu items from here, our table. And then for that, we have actually created a view, and then we can then view the menu items that we have there. So let's dive in here to our menu DB. And what I will do is remove here, first of all, the item 1 that we had available there. I'm also going to remove here the SC lookup, and let me just copy paste the select in here, because it will be much faster. And there we have then our select, grabbing here our menu dynamic view, and then we're grabbing here the ID, and we need to adjust here some of these options, because this isn't entirely right, because we have here the ID, the parent, the icon, which we have, the label, the description, which we have, and then we should have the target, path, and level. Now the level comes from here from the dynamics. So let's have a look at that. which we also don't have. So I guess we don't need the level in here. We can further modify that menu to actually be maybe group orientated or include the security tables and so forth if you wanted to. So for now, we'll just ignore that one. So we have link target. So let's double check again. ID parent. Just copy paste that in here. And then we can see here quite clearly, we have ID, we have parent, we have icon, we have label, we have description, we have link, and we have target. So we can get rid of the path and level, or maybe add those into the actual table. Right, so just like that, we have those applied there. And that is all we are going to need for our dynamic menu. So this menu is then created from our database tables. So we can leave the for each DS, we are using a data set again, and we can set each item as an item. Now what we want to do then is adjust here our ID. So here I will type in extract because we want to extract an item basically. And that will then be our item exactly, comma, and then extr underscore overwrite. Okay. And that will then make each field directly available or usable by the variables, which is quite nice. Okay. So now if I close that up, after our extract, we have our parent, and that will then equal our parent again. And then we want to add a question mark in there, as well as some hyphens. And that will then be our item underscore, because we need to assign now the ID basically to each of our fields as it's looping. So we need to grab then our parent, and we're going to say item parent, and that will then assign that there for us. Okay, so just like that, we can then add some extra values there. We don't need those, but then we do need to close that up. Okay, so we will have then here the item ID. So that will then become a unique ID, okay? As well as then, or it won't be left empty. So now we add those options here into our SC app menu, add item. And let me first of all remove here our loop, because we don't need no loop there. We're literally grabbing all of our menu items. So here we have then item, which is now item ID. So we place that in there. And then we have here the item number 1. That should now become then the parent. And then we want here the region, well, that now becomes then the label. And then for our application, that then becomes our link. See that this then indicates then each of our variables that is then being created here. Now we have here then the extra variable options. We don't need those. We can get rid of that. Now afterwards, we do want to add our icon in here so that we have an icon assigned to that, as well as then our description, and then also our target. So just like that, we have then a fully functional menu. Let's go ahead and save it and then run our new database generated menu, which actually hasn't been generated yet. Well, there is a very simple explanation for that one, and that would be because we copied the menu and we did not change the database connection to our new connection, or should I say the original connection where we had our dynamic menu tables. So if I just adjust that, save then the menu now. Now let's go ahead and run that now. And there we then have our new menu structure taken directly from our database, which of course, you can then also go ahead and apply just by simply downloading this project, checking out the applications, checking out the database table, how that is constructed, and than just applying it to your own projects. So I hope you have some fun with that, and I hope you have enjoyed today's Scriptcase video. Now, my name is Jamie. You can find out more about me over at Scriptcase by Jamie. Do be sure to pop over. And as I mentioned previously, every Friday is macro day. So thanks very much for watching, and until the next video.